Schmelzer. Jacob is a specialist in basically online evangelism, and so I want to unpack that. He runs a church, and I want him to just give us a bit of the stats on how this has helped to grow his church from, I think, a plant to 700 or 800 in a relatively short space of time. He said to me yesterday, he said, it's scary how simple this is, how much people respond if you have the right message out there. And so I've asked him to come, and we're all thinking about this. Now, some of you have, a whole staff, a whole team of online specialists, social media people, and so forth. So I'm not saying that instead of, so here's Jacob, but I am saying let's listen and let's engage on this. I'm thinking right now of as we move through. You remember the dial that I articulated. The top one was we were all thinking a couple of weeks ago about let's get online. Some of you've done some streaming before, but you soon learn it's a very different deal. When you've got a crowd shot, it contextualizes something in my head, and you can be as demonstrative as you like. I mentioned before, just check out some of what Julian's doing down the barrel. He's an incredible communicator, but he eats the camera up, and there's an engagement in that is very, very powerful. And so we talked about, and still are, connection and engagement, connecting with new people and engaging with our people. And then we talked about, and we're going to hit that today, evangelism and sharing, and how to build a funnel online, whether it's a new church plant like we've talked about, or actually starting to get a consistent, predictable flow through. And then we talked about, and we'll talk about, equipping and development. We still need to disciple people. We still need a leadership pipeline. And then finally, strong community engagement at a time when people need us to be the church and our people to be the church, releasing people like never before in an Ephesians 4 kind of way is where we're going in this next season. Jacob, really appreciate you being with us. Why don't you take the floor?
Hey, thank you so much. Good to see you guys today. So such an honor to just get an opportunity to share. And I'm on the call almost every week, and I usually hide out because I'm kind of an introvert. So for me, this whole COVID-19 thing is kind of it's kind of heaven, because I'm forced to stay home and just I don't have to talk to people in the church. I don't have to pray for people. I can just pray from a distance, and it's kind of great. I also have a dark sense of humor, so if I make jokes about a worldwide pandemic, please don't hold it against me. But I am American, so for those of you that are Australian and Kiwis, you guys can just write it off that it's the Americans and their sense of humor. I want to start by saying just thank you to Michael and Valerie for Leaderscape, and what an incredible group this is. My goodness. Every time I'm on the call, I pretty much am shaking with faith and excitement, and I can't wait to go implement stuff that we learn on the call. And so I always feel like I have this great big balloon of faith that gets blown up. Does anybody feel like that after these calls? Like you just get really encouraged and excited? That's awesome. There was like one hand, Michael. We need to.
It's awesome.
We need to respond, guys. This is church. Like,
that's my relative.
Yeah. I think I saw Michael's mom raised her hand. Was she on the call today? Yeah. But just, I love it. So I appreciate you guys and appreciate everybody on this. And man, we get to hear from so many smart people and so many gifted people. And it's just tremendously humbling and honoring for me to be able to share with you guys. So real quick, my goal today in sharing this, when Michael asked me to share about social media and evangelism online, is just to provoke you to action, to start using the power of paid Facebook advertising to reach people for Christ and make disciples. What's interesting is that the world was already heading this direction that we're now in, where we're in this digital space. And I know many of you were already thinking this direction. We have so many incredible leaders and people that are thinking ahead. There are billions of people online. The world was already going this direction of church needing to be brought online in a serious way and into the social media space. But now with this whole crisis, it's just accelerated to this point where people are now spending even more time. And just to give you an idea how crazy it is, I don't know if you've seen any of these emails, any of you that are kind of in the tech space at all, but some of the internet providers, I'm getting these emails that are saying, hey, just be aware, we're seeing such an increase in internet traffic. And it's not like people weren't already online, but we're seeing such an increase in internet traffic that we're having to, raise up our capacity to basically handle it. So what was already the world's single largest and most active mission field is now like ground zero for the gospel in every way. So my mission today, my goal is to kind of provoke you and really sell you this idea that we as pastors and church leaders do not need to assign this to someone necessarily, but we need to be responsible ourselves for recognizing our place to evangelize in the digital space. And I'll share some kind of practical stuff. Real quick, I want to jump in and just talk about our story. As church planters, we started in March of 2016, and our church is in Eugene, Oregon, which is a very unchurched community. It's the University of Oregon is here. If you're familiar with this, we're basically the state in between Washington and California, and it's a small state. Eugene is a very politically liberal, it's a college town. And it's a very different type of a place, very unchurched. So we planted on purpose in Eugene because we wanted to be in a place where people really needed the gospel. And so we planted in March of 2016, and we had 29 people day one. Come on, it was explosive. 29 people in our yeah, get it. And we had that kind of charisma magazine, outreach.com, the type of growth from week 1 to week 2 that they put on the magazine. We went from 29 people with kids to 22 with kids in 2 weeks. Come on, somebody. Get excited. And we had kids church in the garage. So our outreach strategy for church from that point was going door to door. Literally, we went door to door. We had door hangers that we got printed. We went door to door. After we moved out of our house, we went to a little community center. We had about 30 people at the time, and we went door to door in the neighborhood, and we were doing the Rick Warren thing, if you've heard of that, where he went door to door and said, hey, can I pray for you? And we were doing that and just doing everything we could do to grow. We got to about 60 people in the church and just kind of doing organic outreach, inviting friends and family. And it was coming up to Father's Day. And so we had this idea, let's put a video out and invite people to church with a Facebook video. So you guys are going to love this. We really opened the church coffers. We just, in a spirit of faith and generosity, we spent $20 on a Facebook ad. And so we spent $20 and we did a Facebook ad. I got on the ad and I said, hey, dads, fatherhood is really important. Yada, yada, yada. Come to church. You're going to hear this message. And we have meat for you. So we actually bribed people because when you're planting a church, you're desperate to get people. 2 reasons. 1, you want to spread the gospel and win people to Christ. 2, as a pastor who has no marketable skills in the real world, I like to eat and sleep indoors. Anybody bear witness with that? So we were trying to grow. Yeah. So, and get people in the church. So we do this ad, this $20 Facebook ad. And on that Father's Day, we end up having like 80 people show up at this community center. That's not even our place. I mean, it wasn't even the normal place where we met. There's no parking lot. People actually have to park on the street and walk across a park to get to this community center. Horrible location. The ARC does not teach you to do church planting the way we did it. Not at all. And I wouldn't recommend it per se, but people actually showed up. They responded to this message. We had 2 families come. It was about 20 visitors that came from this $20 Facebook ad. One guy gave his life to Jesus in the service. We ended up getting to baptize him. He's still in our church to this day, his whole family. I mean, it was a really powerful thing. So right at that place, it hit me that people respond to this type of a thing. It's a little bit outside of the box because there's this idea that as churches, well, why would we do marketing? Why would we do advertising? That seems like what the world would do. It's not about money. And it's a mistaken thing because marketing is simply bringing a relevant message to somebody who needs it or wants it. That's what marketing is. If you look up the definition of marketing by the American Marketing Association, that's basically the gist of it. And really, when we talk about evangelism, all we are doing is bringing the world's greatest message a relevant message that really has the power to change people's lives. It's everything. And we're bringing that message. And we have allowed ourselves to fall prey to this idea to allow the gospel to be trapped within the four walls of the church. So I want you to think about how absurd this is, that everybody else in the entire world shouts from the rooftops about whatever it is that they have: Nike shoes, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Apple phones. And there's great products out there, but the church is the one organization that has basically allowed our message to be contained in a physical space. So people talk about the church being behind the curve. We're not behind the curve. We lost the curve. We fell off the curve. The curve is not, we're not 5 years behind the curve. We're 50 and 100 years behind the curve. We're using 1800s marketing tactics, which is basically put up a sign in front of a building and expect people to show up. And then we sometimes send out direct mail, but we complain about it because it's too expensive and ineffective in many cases. So the gospel, from a marketing standpoint, we're just taking these tools. I like to say it this way, that we are amplifying the world's greatest message through the world's greatest methods. And we're getting into the, not just the current thing, but we're getting into this, or we're catching up with where the world is at to use these tools. So we use that Facebook ad, $20. We had 20 visitors show up, and we were blown away by that. So we started realizing, okay, we can use this as a tool for evangelism. And we started to think about it, and just, we weren't even really that creative. And even to this day, our advertising is not like extremely creative. It's mostly just a direct invite to church. That's 80% of what we do comes
just
out
give
of
an
that.
Example, Jacob, and how much do you spend a week or a month now?
Yeah. So right now, I would say we spend 10% of our church budget, gross budget, on marketing / outreach evangelism. Okay. So we would spend on Facebook ads anywhere from about $1,000 to $3,000 just on Facebook ads per month. So about $100 a day at this point. But I wouldn't encourage you to jump in at that
Sure.
level. Some churches are spending way more than us. I mean, we're not by any means the biggest, but we spend that much because we're measuring it, and we have an idea of what is actually people that are actually showing up from that. So that's kind of an idea on budget.
That's great. That's great. Just give me some metrics, like in terms of as you would lead up to that, and I'm totally endorsing this message. Not for you to have to become the Facebook guy, but you have to be, and I'll get Jacob to share, you have to be that guy with your phone in your hand, doing little lives, and so give us a couple of examples, Jacob, about the messages. Yeah.
So the type of message, like for ad types, and I was going to get to this a little bit later, but I'll jump ahead.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Basically, there's 3 types of ads. They all start with E that I'll teach you today. So 3 types of ads. This is the one that we're most familiar with, is an event ad. So this is like, we have an event, come to it. We have Easter Sundays happening online. So right this week, I'm sure a lot of us are going to run some kind of a promotion / outreach where we're inviting people to Easter. So that's an event ad. That's what most churches do.
Yeah.
And they typically invite people Christmas and Easter. Okay, that's common. If churches start doing any outreach like this with Facebook or anything, they typically do event type ads. So that's one, and those are really important. But they're not the only thing. In fact, they're really not the most important. Number 2 is what we call an evergreen ad. So an evergreen ad is an ad that basically can run all the time. And every single pastor should have one of these evergreen ads in their pocket at all points. And what I mean by this, and I'll demonstrate it here, is you should be able to pull out your phone and just walk out into the street and do a selfie and say, hey, it's Jake from Joy Church here, and I want to invite you to Joy Church this Sunday at 9 or 10:30 a.m. We meet at the Regal Valley River Theaters, and it's a great place. You can come with your whole family. Every week at Joy Church, there's an encouraging message relevant for your life. It's going to encourage you. It's great. We got free coffee and donuts. Hey, can't wait to see you at Joy Church this Sunday. That's it. Now, online, you just switch it from a physical location to whatever it is. The reason that you want this ad at all times is because anytime, and I'll explain kind of some of this, the technical stuff in a bit, but you want to be able to keep that ad running all the time. So there's a constant presence in your community of people being invited to church. Now, what is actually the most effective in marketing is not necessarily the messaging itself. It is the consistency and the top of mind awareness that comes from that consistency. So you may have heard of the rule of 7. It's an old marketing rule. It said people need about 7 impressions in order to say yes or no to a marketing message. It's probably more like 15 now because of how noisy the world is. And so what we found is that by having that evergreen ad, just, hey, come to church, we're inviting you, it's friendly, it's authentic, you can film it right on your phone, that people see that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And we get people coming to church very regularly that will say, well, I saw you guys on Facebook 2 years ago, and I finally decided to come. People will say all the time, I was at the gym and I was there. We actually advertise on TV now. So we do local television advertising. They'll say, I was at the gym and I was watching the news, and then you came on and I'd seen you on Facebook a few times, and they'll reference an ad that's a year old. So what's actually been happening is they've been seeing it and it builds up, and then the Lord uses it in that moment to trigger that person having a step of coming in. So for our journey of using ads, we basically just started to use them very consistently, and we grew from 80 to 150, from 150 to 200 plus, from 200 plus to 400 plus. And then last Easter, we had 450 visitors. So we were a church of 400. We had 450 visitors on one day. And we did that with Facebook ads primarily, some TV advertising, and some marketing pieces. So
how much is there any way of drilling in and attributing what percentage of that was from your online marketing? Because I know you keep reasonably sophisticated analytics these days, or is it just like, well, we kind of figured it because we did that?
So we didn't have really extremely detailed metrics because for this campaign, we spent $15,000. So we had 450 visitors, but we spent $15,000, which for us was a lot of money. For some churches, that's pennies. That's nothing for a big giant day. I mean, we saw 50 plus people, respond to Christ. We had all these visitors. So we didn't have this really dialed in to know exactly how many people came from which medium. What we have done when we test is we will turn off all of the other marketing that we're doing. So for instance, we'll isolate and say, well, we're just going to do Facebook ads, and then we'll watch and see. What we found is that Facebook ads is probably creating about 80% of the result. So if you're an 80-20 person, if you know that principle, 80-20, 20% of our actions create 80% of our results. So we found with our marketing, Facebook is the vital few that creates.
Very good. Jacob, just hang on for 1 minute. Ben Higgins put a comment in. They planted a campus for Life Church back in 2019. And just, Ben, real quick, just chime in just with the headlines, buddy.
Yeah, we're just dropping that in to encourage everyone with what Jacob's saying. Like we have found that it really does work, and agree 100% around how cost effective it is. Obviously and around the testing as well, continually testing and measuring how effective certain ads are. But we spent approximately $3,000 over a period of 6 months. And essentially we were trying to get people's details and lead up to launch so we could then follow them up, give them a call, have a chat, begin to build relationship. And we saw, a really, really effective sort of rate between people leaving details. If they left details, we were very diligent to make sure our team really followed them up. And we saw a large amount of those people, about 50% of those people actually attend a service. And I would say maybe 30% of those of the overall number have stayed at Life Church. So some obviously come and attend 1 week and decide not to come back, or they were just whatever. Yeah. But we saw a lot of salvations too from that. So it wasn't just people that have been to church before. And I think that's the encouraging thing. We saw a lot of salvation.
That's awesome. And the stats are in the chat box. Back to you, Jacob.
That's awesome. Hey, Ben, that's awesome. Hey, also, Ben, we should talk sometime. We planned to talk like last year.
We should. Absolutely.
That's so cool. That's the best part of all of it, is that this is just evangelism. So it's really not about the mechanism. I would use carrier pigeons if that was what we could use to get the gospel message out. It's just a tool. I always think about this when we're talking about something like Facebook ads, because it's a little out of the box, but I always think about this. If the Apostle Paul were somehow translated into modern day and he walked into your church and he joined your church staff, first of all, make sure your theology and doctrine is sound. That's number one. But number two, I guarantee you he's going to sit and go, what is this Facebook thing? You're saying we can literally get on and talk to everybody in a 50-mile radius around our church or around the world for pennies on the dollar, and we can preach the gospel. And we were going across, back in my day, young whippersnappers, we were going on ships and getting beat up and stoned, and you guys can just get on video and preach the gospel. I mean, I always think about that we neglect this. I mean, think about this. If I walked in, if your staff member runs in breathlessly, pulls open the door and says, Pastor, there's 50,000 people. They've all gathered and they're waiting for you. There's a microphone and you can say whatever you want. What would you do? And yet we sit and we go, gosh, gee golly, I wish people would show up at church. It's easy. I mean, it's right there just to be able to reach out and connect with people and do that. So those, the other thing I'll say about this is that we are the only organization, okay, as the church, okay, we have a very specific mission to make disciples, which, you know, is part and parcel with reaching out to people evangelistically first. It's part of that same process. So we are the only marketing agency in the world that literally has God on our side to help us accomplish our marketing objective. Literally, the Holy Spirit is already, as we know, at work in the hearts of people all around us, already convicting the world of sin and righteousness, the judgment to come. The Holy Spirit's already working on people.
And especially now, right? People just are so open to the things of God.
Yep. And so if you can get on in an authentic way on a video, and it can be very, very simple. In fact, I'll say this, the more simple and more authentic and more real that it is, the better. Less polish and more just authenticity. So guys, literally, I go out in front of my house. My kids are usually running around screaming, not possessed or anything, but just because they're kids. And I just record videos and I'll start them off. Hey, Eugene, it's Pastor Jake from Joy Church. Or actually, I don't say pastor, I just say Jake. Hey, Eugene, it's Jake from Joy Church. And this Sunday, we're going to talk about this, and it's going to be encouraging to you. And maybe you're one of those people that says, gosh, I don't ever want to go to church. Well, hey, now you can come to church and eat Cap'n Crunch and wear your pajamas and just crack jokes and be real, just exactly like how you would create a video for a friend. And that it really works. People resonate with it. So, so the three ad types, because I want to get into some of the technical side of it beyond the motivation piece. Hopefully you're inspired a little bit to use this. So the three ad types, you've got event ads. So for big days or for things like Easter or Christmas or whatever it is that you want to advertise. What I would encourage you to do is look at a 10-day window before whatever event you've got, and whatever marketing budget you have, try to add most of that budget to happen in that 10-day period of time. So one of the things churches will do is they'll start Facebook ads like 3 months before. And that's useless because people, you're not getting them in their decision-making window.
Yeah.
So a 10 days is a good window that we found. Now, what I would say is while we're inviting people to online services right now and forever, even a shorter window. So I would say the 5 days, 6 days, 5 days leading up to an online service is when you really want to put event ads. So we will actually push our ads right up and through our service for Easter this Sunday. So we'll have Facebook ads literally saying, come watch the service, and people could literally click on the ad and be into the service. Pretty cool. So event ads are one. The second one, the evergreen ad. And the third one, this is really powerful, is an evangelism ad. So you've got an event ad, an evergreen ad, and an evangelism ad. So one of the things that you have the ability to do with Facebook is you can
wait to get to this one. You talked to me about this yesterday. Okay, come on, let's go.
Yeah. So you can run what's called a video view campaign, and Facebook basically knows the people that are interested in watching videos. And so it's very cheap to get video views, whether they're 5, 10, 15 seconds, however long somebody will engage. Now, I want you to think about this again, using that metaphor analogy of you have 50,000 people that are waiting for you. That's not just a word picture. That's true right now. literally any of us could get on our phones and we could start talking to everybody around us and share a message. And so one of the things that we started to do is we started to run these ads that are not just an invitation to church, but they're really an invitation to Christ. Okay. So if each of these ads has a call to action, like for an event ad, come to Easter; for an evergreen ad, come to church on Sunday; for an evangelism ad, it's come to Jesus. And we don't necessarily say in the ad, hey, give your life to Jesus right now, although you probably could, and people probably would respond. But what we'll do are things like this. So I'll get on, we'll pick a theme. So one of them that we did was called Where's God? So I did like a 2-minute video, and I said, hey, and I got on the video. So I want you to imagine that you're seeing me on Facebook and I'm just holding my phone, or this one was a camera maybe pointed at me, but it's real simple. And I said, hey, all of us go through really horrible pain and suffering. And maybe you've had this question, where's God? And you know what? It's totally okay for you to ask that question, where's God? Because we all feel pain. We all go through suffering. But the reality is that God is with us and present in our pain. And in fact, the Christian worldview speaks right to the fact of why there is suffering in the world, and the fact that God sent his son Jesus to embrace and enter into our suffering. Well, what am I doing right now? I'm preaching the gospel, right? But I'm engaging this question that people have in culture. Where's God? And if you go right to the pain, you will get extreme engagement. Go right to the question. So people have been asking us right now, why did God cause COVID-19? Why did God allow? Why did God do this? And so I'm literally going on video and answering that question. And I guarantee you there are thousands of people in our community that have that question. And now I get to answer it and preach the gospel, right? And I'll say at the end something like, hey, if you have, Joy Church is a place where your questions about God and life and spirituality are welcome. We want to help you take the next step in your spiritual journey. That's the call to action. And people respond to that. They'll start asking questions on the ad. But here's where the real kicker is on these, okay? Because you go, well, are you seeing like thousands of people get saved from the ads? No. What they do is they start conversation, they start engagement, and we can actually collect the people that have viewed those videos who are now actually receiving a gospel impression, right? And we can take those video views and we can put them into a custom audience in Facebook, and then we can use that evergreen ad, right, that we already created. And now we can not only send them more evangelism ads, but we can send them more evergreen ads, and people find themselves in a web of Christian outreach that they will never escape from until they give their life to Jesus. The hound of heaven is upon you, my friend, and you are caught. And this is how, people are literally getting saved. We had a guy get saved on our live stream service out of Jehovah's Witness background. He'd come to a service like 2 years ago and didn't stick, but he kept getting videos, right? And so now we're just, able to just continually, evangelize with people. So those are the 3 ad types. If you do those 3, you have it all. You don't need to get complicated. The setup is very simple. So hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. Let's go for a couple of questions. Thank you so much for that, Jacob. There's obviously stacks more. Ken's asking about, Ken, give us your question, bud.
And part of the challenge is around how many platforms we expose ourselves on. We're just wrestling with this at the moment. Facebook, YouTube, Church Online, our own webpage. What are your thoughts around, do you try and spread out across all of those, or focus on 1 or 2 and push people into a central channel?
Are you talking about specifically for advertising or as platforms for your online experience?
Well, I suppose the advertising is coming out of Facebook. I understand that. It's probably the next step. What are you pushing people to when you're trying to get people to connect?
Yeah, so I feel like that's a really good question. And there's a lot of, other people might have different opinion. My opinion on it would be to send people to your website URL. So for us, it's really easy to say, go to joyeugene.com, go to joyeugene.com, because that sticks with people. They're used to hearing that .com, type of a thing. Now, if you have a church, it's like First Lady of the Resurrection of the Fields.co.nz, that doesn't work. So you have to think through that. That's Ben's church, I think, right? Is what you guys are. Ben is. Well, I think too, legally, when you plant a church now, you actually have to start it with a Greek word. It has to be a Greek word.
Yeah.
Ekklesia. Hopefully that's helpful, Ken. just push people to the website.
Okay. Sorry, Graham. Graham, you've got a couple of questions there. You can smush them together.
Yeah. Okay. Unbelievable, Jacob. Like, thanks so much. This is very, very cool. First question: how much weekly do you spend on evergreen ads, and how many ads are you doing? Second one is: do any of these videos have edited music in the background? Like, are they highly edited, mid-edited, low-edited, lo-fi? And then last question: how do you handle the backlash on the posts? Like people sending hate comments. Do you delete them? Do you pull them out? Do you shut comments off? Just love to know those answers.
Awesome question. I mean, I just cuss people out. If they disagree with me, I just right back at them. I mean, I'm pull the sword out, cut his ear off, just. So we get a ton of backlash, as you would imagine. That's a great question. So I'll answer that one first. If I always try to answer it in a redemptive way, a question that someone asks. So on social media, there's always a group of people around you listening to what's happening. So, because most of us just lurk. I don't comment on people's stuff. I've never commented on anybody's post, but I always read the comments. And so if you think about that, for every one comment, there's 100 people that are watching what's being done and what's being said. So we very, very regularly get people from the LGBTQ community who are like, this is hogwash or whatever. That's not what they say. They say different. I get called a child molester probably once a week because, that pastor, priest, or whatever, people do that. So that's fun. And what we do is if we can answer it in a graceful, redemptive way, if there's any way, and we'll pray about it too, any way to answer that, to try to disarm and then create a gospel moment. If people are very, very antagonistic, I will actually slap back a little bit. Because if you go just to the New Testament and you see these encounters that are happening, I think about the Apostle Paul. Like he was that whole idea of wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. So we're being graceful, we're being redemptive, but we're also being a little salty because we're salt and light. And so sometimes we'll say, well, that's an opinion that you have, but this is another belief, and you can do that. You have to have the right people equipped to do that. My background is Christian apologetics. I have a degree in Christian philosophy. So it is helpful for me. I kind of have that bent to think through questions from a different angle and then slide in and answer them. What has happened is that this is our best strategy for answering hateful comments is we'll say, man, I appreciate your engagement on this. I can see that we're at a difference of opinion. Would you like to meet and have a discussion? No strings attached, have a discussion. Which has actually led for me to personally go and have coffee with 2 atheists. And they were baptized in the Holy Spirit and saved right there in Starbucks. No, they weren't. But we had good dialogue, good conversations. And so that can happen with the backlash. What was your other question?
Just how you edit it. Do you edit it lo-fi? Is it just you with a voice? Has it got background music in it? How hard out do you go?
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll post, if that's okay with Michael, I could probably send some examples to see, but we do different levels of production. So like for events, for Easter, we do higher level of productions, especially when we're doing a big day. And what I say higher level of production, it's still very simple, but I'll have my guy that's a good, camera operator with a DSLR. So it's got good depth of field. And we'll have some music, some royalty-free music underneath it, and there'll be some lower thirds. Whenever we do TV advertising, we elevate the production because local TV always looks terrible, and so we want our ad to look like a professional, national kind of level ad. And it's easy to do when you're competing with local TV advertisers. But for Facebook, I recommend just straight from your phone, no editing. No background music. The less like an ad you can make it feel, the better. Yeah. Especially for your evangelistic ads, for your this Sunday ads. It's better to just be authentic. The quality does not matter nearly as much as we think. It's really about the messaging and the heartfelt authenticity.
Very good. Very good. Guys, I protect this platform, and I may have done it once before in 3 years. Jacob's one of our own, and so I never bring people on to flog you stuff. But you'll appreciate there's a whole lot behind this that some of you may go, you know what? And he does have a program that you or one of your team can go through. I think it's $97 US a month, just month by month. And that'll give you all of his intel, including a monthly Q&A call. Now, you say, hang on a minute, you've got a program. Why would you promote someone else's? Because I care about you getting this stuff down. And so I'm asking this. He was a bit embarrassed when I said, look, I think some of the guys might be interested. And he said, I didn't do that. No, I want to help. I said, well, yeah, you're helping. You're not going to find out what you need to know right now. So if you are interested, then just drop in program in the comments, and I'll get you a link that you can follow through. No pressure, but you'd appreciate there's a whole lot more in this that he hasn't got time to share that is going to really, really help you to avail yourself, particularly of this, right? Oh, programs everywhere. Boom, 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 boom. Of right now. So am I saying that right, Jake? It's $97 US a month
Yep.
by month.
Yeah, month by month.
And so we would love to, so please hear my heart. We don't do this. This is not a flogging product thing. This is to help you, but I actually believe it will help you.
What does the program offer?
Just give us a quick heads up on the program, what it offers.
Yeah. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. And yeah, guys, my heart is to help. I mean, I run tons and tons of ads. Some of you as pastors probably get assaulted by my ads because I practice what I preach. We use it for the church and for business on Facebook. But the program that I run is called Up-Level Leader. And the heart is basically just to use the world's greatest tools to amplify the world's greatest message. And so my dad is 63 years old. I think he's been in ministry for 38 years. And I tried to create training where I thought about my dad and I thought, okay, could my dad implement this for his church? Now, luckily my dad has a bunch of really savvy techie, younger people, but I thought about that to try to create something that was simple enough where even if you're a solo pastor and you've got, we've got people in my program that have 10 people in their church and people that have 7,000 in their church. So we tried to create a training that could be implemented though by, even if you're the only guy and you're doing everything, you're the preacher, the janitor, all that. So we cover Facebook ads, we cover church marketing, and we really cover messaging. So some of the stuff that I'm sharing today is kind of the 10,000 foot overview of some of those types of things. So that's what it is. But I'm also happy just to answer any questions. I mean, Michael and Valerie have been so over the top generous with us inside of Leaderscape. If anybody has any questions, Michael, please just let me know, and I'd be very happy to help just answer questions too. So
very good. Jackie's just posted a link. Is that the link that you gave her, Jacob?
I don't know. I sent you guys a message earlier, but we can post it. I can make sure you get the right link. So for leader, because I want to make sure you guys come through the Leaderscape link and get the right setup for that. So maybe hang on and then we'll get you the right link from Michael. They can send the right link to you guys.
All right. Any other questions on that? Like this sits in the framework of what again, I don't know whether you can even see that behind me. Let me just.
Okay, so Phil's asking for an example to get Jacob to post it in the Facebook space. That would be good.
Have you got any examples that that you can access of what you've done, buddy?
Post it in the Facebook space.
Yeah, you're asking me if I have any examples. I can post those ads in the group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll post them in the group and say, here's an evangelism ad, here's an evergreen ad, here's an event ad,
right.
and you can see what they look like.
That'd be really helpful.
I want to say, if it's okay, Michael, just for a second. I know there might be other questions possibly, but I don't want anybody to feel intimidated by the tech side of it, it's really not very techy, and it's the strategies that we use at Joy Church are very, very simple. Then they're not based on all of these, leveraging the algorithm. It's very different than like what you would do in like a secular business using Facebook as a marketing tool, which is very savvy and getting the Facebook pixel all all set up correctly. This is really more about getting the right message and then using the power of consistency and saturation to impact people while the Holy Spirit works on them. So it's very simple. You're talking about, the other thing is with ads, an evergreen ad, we will run one evergreen ad for 6 months to a year. So you could literally batch your video content creation and do, let's say, maybe 3 sessions a year where you record some videos and you are really good to go for the next period of time. So even on a time commitment, it's not super long to be able to do this.
Andrew's asking, Andrew Hogarth, about, he's getting some pushback from Gen Z on Facebook. Obviously, they're much more Insta savvy and other newer platforms. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first, I hate those guys. Gen Z, man, those, gosh, asking those kind of questions, pushing back. No, I'm just kidding. In marketing, there's a little rule of thumb that you don't listen to what people say they buy. You look at what they actually buy. So everybody says, oh, I don't like Facebook. Because everybody wants to be cool. This is how the platforms are. Google is like the business, kind of like a stoic father in business attire. Pinterest is the mom, you know what I mean? Facebook is like the nerdy older brother who just got a job. Instagram is like the cool, hot 22-year-old going to college sister. And Twitter's like the ugly redheaded stepchild. People will never admit that they use Twitter, or they'll never admit that they're on Facebook, except for the fact that 2 billion people are active on Facebook. And so the whole thought of generations is kind of a myth that they're not there. Gen Z is on Facebook hugely. They use it in a different way than they use Instagram. And it's not cool. So they don't say that we're doing it. But here's the beautiful part beyond that. But I just wanted to say that that's kind of a myth that to be aware of. It is that when you advertise through Facebook, it goes right to Instagram. It's the same platform. Facebook owns Instagram. So you get the best of both worlds when you do it. And like, I don't have a dog in the hunt for Facebook. I don't get a commission from them or whatever. We just use it because people actually respond. So we're looking at response, not necessarily what people say, if that makes sense.
People are asking, can you outsource it? People are asking, just
someone asked about outsourcing. Can you outsource your advertising? I hear you saying not necessary for the simplicity of what you do. I understand that. We outsource ours. We spend about $2,500 a month, $2,000 a month on getting stuff out. We do the odd ad into Lead Passes Momentum Central, which is our free site. But we mostly it's just getting stuff out to add value. And like what Jacob said, owning that space, becoming that voice of authority in the area that you know, and that is doing life well, putting your head on the pillow and being able to sleep at night, handling stress and anxiety. That's our playing field right there. And so in a sense, you are an expert. And what the consistency does of that message, the reason that I post a couple of times a day is 2 things. I want to help. I want to add value right now. There's a whole bunch of pastors running around like chooks with their heads cut off. And secondly, I'm reinforcing my role of authority as the go-to person for momentum for churches, come what may. So that's what we do. You take the role of the authority to Eugene, to Southern California, to Melbourne, to Sydney, to Auckland, to Nelson, to wherever around the world.
It's good. There's an effect that happens. What you're saying, Michael, is so powerful because there's an effect that happens when you show up in public. People walk up to me all the time and they're like, oh, you're Jake from Joy Church. And I have this crazy, which I do not want because I'm very introverted. I prefer people not talk to me in public, honestly. But status where people, they trust you because they've seen you. And you think about this happens in culture. Why are people famous for being famous? Why is that a thing? But that is a thing. They're seen enough. Their stature gets to this certain level. And now we go, oh, well, I know who that is. That's one of the Jenner sisters, or that's this person. And they're famous for being famous. Now, we can get mad about that and make fun of it, but what about if we leveraged it for the power of the gospel and said, hey, if I was actually present in my community and I was a seen figure, I was out quite a bit encouraging people, talking about issues that people were facing, you become a trusted voice. And it's really powerful. Pastors need to be in the marketplace. The gospel in the first century, it was presented in the marketplace, which was where the ideas and the philosophers and everything was sort of there. And right now we're relegated to our boxes. Not anymore, not now with the way the world is right now, but we've been relegated in our boxes, and we're an authority for the people that already agree with us in the echo chamber. But now you can actually be an authority out in the marketplace, in the world.
Amazing.
And the value of the gospel into that discussion.
Our daughter Elise is doing a Bible study at the moment online with Hannah Brown, who was the Bachelorette, and comes from Alabama. She made some mistakes on there and was a big learning curve for her and copped a whole lot from it. But then their Bible study, doing one every day of Holy Week, they had 150,000 people of Hannah's. It was on Hannah's platform. She's got about, several million people on her Instagram platform. 150,000 people showed up to the Bible study they did yesterday for 20 minutes. Wow. And Hannah is famous for being famous, kind of thing, and using a platform well.
That's good.
Guys, so many questions. I want to be true to our time. We're already 2 minutes over. Russell's saying, maybe finish with this and then I'll get you to pray, Jake. Where to start? Where to start with this? Start with organic, start with paying for Facebook ads. What will we do?
Yeah. So I would say definitely if you're going to get a video out and get it posted on your page, that's good. But Facebook became a pay-to-play platform. You're not going to get any reach. It's kind of the same thing as preaching a message inside of your church. A few people are going to come and hear it that need to hear it, but really you got to pay to play on Facebook and Instagram now. That's just the way that it is. So I would encourage you to record a This Sunday ad, an evergreen ad. This is like your lightning fast, 30-second, get a lot of results in a hurry type advice. Record an ad that invites people to your online service right now. Later, you'll do one to your physical location, but record an ad that says, hey, this is my name. We'd love you to come to our church. Give them like 2 or 3 features/benefits of why they should come. For instance, I tell people it's an encouraging, relevant message that will encourage you with where you're at right in your life right now. So people know I'm not going to come hear about some whale that ate a guy and what the heck, and is Adam and Eve, why were they naked, and what's with the snake? People don't understand the Bible yet. The people that we need to reach don't get it. So you need to say, I'm going to talk to you about your life, where you're at, what your pains are. Come to church and show up at joyeugene.com this Sunday. Take that ad, boost it out to, or not boost it, but run it as a paid ad on a campaign out to about however far out you want to go that you draw people from in your city. And that's the best way to start right there.
Brilliant. All right. Could you pray for us, Jake? That'd be great.
Father, I just thank you for every incredible pastor and leader represented here. They're wonderful churches. Lord, I am so encouraged by just the grace on all these wonderful people, men and women together. Lord, what an exciting team we get to be on to accomplish this great mission of making disciples. Lord, we thank you that even as the world is going through crisis and it's unprecedented times, we're not locked in fear and we're not locked in panic. In fact, we are believing this is an opportunity for your church to advance in a powerful way and for thousands, hundreds and thousands of people to come to know you in a real way. Lord, I pray for every pastor here that you would trigger that heart of the evangelist, Lord, inside of them to go, man, I can just do a simple thing and reach and impact many people. Pray every limiting belief or fear that would keep us from being that voice and speaking with boldness and courage into our communities would be silenced, Lord, and every pastor and leader would be encouraged to step out and assume that their role that you've given them as a voice and a leader in their community. Father, we love you. We thank you. And we give you this day in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, buddy.